This week's Torah portion, Parshat Pekudei, contains the accounting, the summary of the various items and material used in the construction of the Mishkan, the traveling tabernacle, the traveling temple the Israelites used in the wandering of the desert. Also, what was used not just to build the structure itself, but the utensils within it, the altar, the wash basin, the clothing of the high priests. All of the material that was used is accounted for in this Parsha. It opens with one of the following lines. This is chapter 38, verse 22. ובצלאל ben Uri ben Gur למטה Yehuda. Bezalel, who was the great artisan who was in charge of the project, son of Uri, son of Gur of the tribe of Judah, Asa et kol asher tziva Hashem et Moshe, did all that God had commanded Moses. Now, that seems like a palatable, easily understood phrase, but there's an intrinsic question that the sages ask here, which is, why did the verse have to tell us that Bezalel did all that God had commanded Moses? Why did the verse not simply say Bezalel did all that he had been commanded, or all that had been commanded? Why this reiteration of the phrase did all that God had commanded Moses? So with that question in mind, let's look at the comment of Rashi, the great medieval commentator, who says as follows: Asher tzuva ein ktiv kan. That which Bezalel was commanded is not written here. Ella, kol asher tziva Hashem et Moshe, but rather all that God commanded Moses. Afilu dvarim shelo amar lo rabo. This implies that even with regards to matters which Moses didn't tell Bezalel, hiskima dato lama shenamar leMoshe b'Sinai. Bezalel sort of was attuned, his mind inferred that which God told Moses at Sinai. It's a very innovative idea that Moses, the leader of the Jewish people, leader of the Israelites, tells Bezalel, who's the head designer and contractor of the Mishkan project, here's what I want you to do. And Bezalel understands that there's things that Moses was commanded by God that Moses didn't say to Bezalel, and Bezalel nevertheless understood them and carried them out appropriately. What do we mean by this? What is being referred to here? Ki Moshe tziva leBezalel asar tchila kelim v'achar kach mishkan. Here's the most central element of this. Moses commanded Bezalel to make the kelim, the furnishings of the tabernacle, the items within it, first, and then to build the structure, the Mishkan itself. Amar lo Bezalel, but Bezalel responded, Minhag ha'olam lasot tchila bayit. What do we do generally? We build the structure, the house. Va'achar kach mesim kelim betocho. And only then do we put the furnishings, the stuff, into it. To which Moshe said, Kach shamati mipi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What you just said, that's actually what God told me to do. That is actually what God told me to do. And that's what Bezalel did. First he built the Mishkan, and then he constructed what went inside of it. So that Rashi is fascinating in and of itself, that Bezalel inferred and was attuned to the divine decree about how this should all be built. Moshe changed the order. Moshe didn't say that you should build the outside in. Moshe talked about the furnishings and then the bayit. This is a reference to a couple parshas ago in Parsha Kitisa, chapter 31. You can look there. So the next question, of course, is going to be, why did Moshe not say exactly what God told him to do? That question is going to be asked and answered by our go-to commentator, the Maharal, in his commentary, the Gur Aryeh, his super commentary on Rashi, where he says here as follows: V'im tomar u'Moshe lama lo tziva alasot hamishkan kodem. And if you're going to say, well, then why did Moshe not say build the tabernacle, build the Mishkan first, the bayit, the house, and then the furnishings inside it. Yesh lomar. Here's our answer. Moshe hayamakdim et hakelim. Moshe mentioned the furnishings first. Tahari hakelim heim chashuvim min hamishkan. Because really the furnishings are more important than the structure itself. And he's going to give an interesting proof text for this. Kemoshe mochiach shehakelim masa b'nei kahat. Because later in the book of Numbers, in Bamidbar chapter 4, we're going to see which sub-families of the tribe of Levi carried which parts of the Mishkan. And we see that it was the family of Kahat that carried the pieces of the utensils, the kelim, the furnishings, the elements of the Aron, where the holy parts of the luchot, of the tablets were kept, where the kruvim, the cherubs perched on top, where God appeared. The holy of the holies, those elements were carried by the Kahat family. V'amishkan b'masa b'nei Merari, whereas it was the family of Merari, another subgroup of the tribe of Levi. They carried the building itself, the structure itself. Uvenei Kahat hayu chashuvin min b'nei Merari. And we know from other sources, this seem to be Kabbalistic ideas, that Kahat was sort of on a higher level. That's the family that Moshe and Aaron were from. So the family that was on the higher level was carrying those elements that were considered more holy. V'yesh l'hatchil b'ikar, and Moshe thought, you know what? These things that are more integral, that's where we have to start. Now, it's interesting that the Maharal uses that proof. I would have said a much simpler proof, which is what? The point of the Mishkan, the point of the temple, is the activity that happens inside. And what is happening inside this Mishkan is offerings and sacrifices, and the offering of the incense, and the visiting of the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, to the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur. And those items, therefore, are on a higher level. That's why Moshe started with them. That's not what the Maharal says. But interesting to note that. So Moshe wanted to start with the furnishings. He felt that they were central. Aval be'inyan ha'maaseh yesh lahakdim et hamishkan mipnei she'hamishkan hu shmirat hakelim. But when it came to the practical guidance for building, what Bezalel inferred, he said you have to start outside and move in, because it's the building, it's the structure that houses and protects the furnishings. And if you have the furnishings without a structure, then you're leaving them out open to the elements, etc. And because Bezalel was the one tasked with the practical aspects of building, he understood intuitively, he inferred that really it would made more sense to build from the outside in, which is what God had in fact instructed Moshe to do. Moshe's job was not the practical, his job was educational. He taught the people what was important, and he felt therefore that he should start by teaching about the furnishings, what go in it. For this was a pedagogic move, an educational decision that Moshe made. Mishkan. He knew the shape of the Mishkan, and he knew, therefore, to start with the furnishings, that was ultimately more important. Aval inyan ha'asiyah, but in terms of what to practically do, ma yikdim b'maaseh, and starting with the action, nishkach hamenu, he really sort of either forgot here or neglected to the practical aspect of building from the outside in. Ad ki Bezalel hamichalisya hiskarato, until Bezalel, who was more attuned with the practical aspects, he reminded him. So first of all, it's a radical idea that Moshe would change what God had told him. And it's also a beautiful idea that there's a separation of powers here between Moshe, who was in charge of the educational vision of the Israelites and said we should start with the items, the furnishings, what's internal, because that's what's more important. That's what we want people to be thinking about. Whereas Bezalel, who's in charge of the practical, said, no, we got to build outside in. That's how we build. And Moshe said, yes, that's true. That's actually what God told me. So a beautiful midrash and fascinating and very helpful explanation by the Maharal. Always a pleasure learning with you. More next week.